Washington, D.C. is broken, corrupt, and just way too powerful. But here's something most people don't know. We can actually shrink the physical size of Washington, D.C., and we should. The word is called retrocession. That's kind of a fun word. What does it mean, though? So here are key points about retrocession and what it means. Um, so DC was never meant to be a city of 750,000 people, just never meant to be that big. About 180 years ago, actually, part of DC went back to Virginia, Alexandria. So there's a precedent, right? Um, it's time to send everything back to Maryland, everything in DC, except the White House, Congress, and the Supreme Court. Just keep those small government buildings part of DC proper. This is going to force a national discussion about our federal government, about shrinking DC. It's just too big. And we need to shrink not just the size, the physical size of DC, but also the power and jurisdiction of the federal government. So this, I think, is a great forcing function, retrocession, to have this national debate and this national conversation. Also, another thing that retrocession does is it kind of takes care of the DC statehood debate, which it's never going to happen. It just should become part of Maryland, right? Reunification, retrocession, whatever you want to call it. Hello, America, and welcome to the Shrink DC, Save America podcast. I'm Patrick Trepanier. I'm the author of American Restraint. Please check out the show and give your comments, like, subscribe. It really helps get the word out about the show. And I really hope you enjoy the conversation and the discussions, because you're going to hear a lot of different things here than you are on other similarly themed political or government discussions. So who is this show for? It's for independents and right-leaning Americans who are just tired of division and outrage media. It's also for people who think that America is just on the wrong track, but they want real solutions, not more politicians or status quo solutions. About 80% of Americans, believe that America is on the wrong track, and they don't just want more of the same. So why is this show different? Well, I think this show is different for a couple of key reasons. We try to be optimistic and thoughtful in how we talk about solving America's problems, how to solve America's divisions. We're solution focused, not just complaining. You get plenty of complaining. You go to Fox News or MSNBC or CNN or Reddit, you just can hear a bunch of complaining. This show is solutions oriented. And then I'd say the last thing that differentiates this show is we're bridge builders here. Instead of constantly fighting and arguing. And I would like to give a shout out to a classic bridge builder, President Russell M. Nelson, the president of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, just died a couple days ago. He was 101 years old, just a man of peace, a bridge builder, and just a tremendous example of peace in this country. And I would also like to kind of shout out someone who I'm not normally going to shout out on this show. That's Hakeem Jeffries, the minority leader in the House. I don't agree with Hakeem Jeffries on probably anything, well, most things, but something he said over the weekend, I completely agree with, and I want to applaud him for his candor and his willingness to be a bridge builder. So another event that happened, a tragic event over the weekend, was a shooting. It was a complete disaster in Michigan of a church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, location just outside of Flint, Michigan. And this one hits kind of close to home for me because I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And this was just horrific. But I agree with what Hakeem Jeffries said in response to this terrible incident. He said, "The level of high-profile violence in America this year shocks the conscience." And it does. He added, Our country is spiraling out of control. We need dramatic change. I agree with Hakeem. The country is spiraling out of control, and we need real change. And that's what this show is about. The core messages of this show are, number one, America needs structural change, not status quo politicians. Retrocession or DC reunification with Maryland, that's just one example of major structural change. Another core message of this show is only a constitutional convention can fix what's ailing America. There are three amendments that the Convention of States movement has really been pushing. They've got a lot of momentum. These three amendments are, number one, balance the budget. Number two, term limits for Congress, and probably term limits for the Supreme Court. Number three, reduce federal power and jurisdiction. I think retrocession is a great start there. So you can learn a little bit more about conventionofstates.com if you go there and check them out. A lot of momentum. 19 of 34 states that we need to call a second constitutional convention. 19 of 34 states have already done this. They've already passed a resolution to call for a convention. DC is not going to reform itself. So here is why the retrocession solution makes a lot of sense. Shrinking DC geographically, it forces a national conversation about how the federal government is just too big, out of control. And we also can solve, we talked about this a little bit before, solves the DC statehood debate. I agree. Taxation without representation, it's mostly a kind of a Democratic Party talking point. I agree with it. But the way to solve that is not by giving DC statehood. The way to solve it is put DC over in Maryland. And again, we keep only core government buildings. Gosh, it's only maybe just a couple of miles. You get the White House, the National Mall, Supreme Court, and Congress. That's it. Everything else goes back to Maryland, and you shrink DC in order to save America. So what's next on the show? Again, this show is different. We try to be optimistic, solution-oriented, focus on structural reform to the country in order to save the country. And we're going to talk about some of these really big topics and innovative solutions that you probably haven't heard about on other podcasts or other shows or cable news, because quite frankly, most of them are about clickbait journalism and just about getting eyeballs to sell ads. And this show is different. We're going to talk about the national debt crisis and why it matters. The national debt, it's just an abomination. And it's a symbol, I think, of the excess of our country. It's a symbol of our broken culture, our broken economy, and we need to solve this issue. We're also going to talk about the national housing crisis. Again, it's just a symbol of everything that's broken with our economy. And then we're also going to talk about why Congress can't reform itself and why they won't. And we're also going to talk about something I've been reading a lot about recently, especially after the Charlie Cook shooting. A spiritual revival is taking hold in America. So really interesting stuff. I hope that you will tune in for some of these shows coming up. The bottom line here is America works better when power is put back in the states, closest to the people, not in the largest imperial city in the history of the world, Washington, D.C. Shrinking D.C., both physically and politically, will help get us there. All right, thanks for listening. Have a great day.